All right, Mark Rogers TV talking some Boston College football. BC having concluded its spring workouts with the spring game this past Saturday. We bring in Dan Rubin from BC Interruption. And Dan, the last we left you, you were talking up that passing game. And hey, if you need to work on it, you might as well go at it full throttle and just throw it every play against the same colored jerseys, as they say.
Hey, it was for the first time in a long time. We left the spring game with some good feelings about the nothing in transition or whatever it was that was going on in the Boston College football realm. Most spring games, people like to look back and see, they divide up the rosters and see, all right, we're going to take these first team guys against these first team guys and look for depth guys. Boston College doesn't really do that. Last year, they didn't have enough healthy bodies. So the spring game became more of an open drill, open workout. It was more just to come on down and watch the team go through drills, especially after a winter in which we got buried under snow up here. This year, they decided to bring back the spring game, and it's in an untraditional format. Steve Addazio in the release even said, look, this is going to be a little more vanilla than you'll see at other places. We're not going to run plays that everyone's going to see during the year, and we're going to try to do this for the players and have some fun. The night before, they did a draft. They took two guys who were hurt, made them honorary captains. They drafted a team ESPN style with the two teams, maroon and gold, which wound up becoming maroon and white based off the two jersey colors. And then just opened up and had some fun. They threw the ball a ton. They only ran 10 plays that were rushing plays, which, considering Boston College's offense the last couple of years and under Addazio, it was the last 3 years under Addazio when they were run heavy. They just went out and had some fun and threw the ball all over. You had a bunch of guys who were able to complete passes. Darius Wade, who was hurt last year during the third game against Florida State, broke his ankle, had been out for the year, was granted a medical red shirt in the offseason. He comes out, throws a 31-yard pass to a tight end. I mean, when does that happen at Boston College? You decide to throw a pass, let alone throw a pass to a tight end for 30 yards. And he throws 181 yards. It was a fun day, despite the fact that the score was 6-2. That Maroon beat White 6-2, and there were no offensive touchdowns. Everybody's going to point and laugh at it. But you know what? When you're running time in the second half and you're having fun with the guys and you're just out there throwing the ball around and playing some competitive, what amounted to what I felt like was schoolyard football, it at least leaves a good taste in your mouth and reminds you why you enjoy watching football in the first place.
Well, Dan, you beat me to the punch there at a final score of 6-2 with no touchdowns. Why am I not surprised that was the final score of a BC spring game?
Well, you got to harken back to your roots, right? Like I said, everyone likes to use him as a punchline for it, and it's well deserved. I mean, Steve Addazio, you could sit him down probably across from you and ask him about it, and after he'd have the color creeping up into his head of anger at some of the things that he saw during the year. They knew that it was unsustainable, and they made changes. I mean, they knew that last year's offense was awful. They knew that they made bad and poor decisions. They knew that they had to make changes, and they did make changes. But for them, the spring game was really a way to get back and say, look, they ran the time in the second half, and the second half was done in about a half hour. Would someone have scored a touchdown in there? Probably. If they had run an actual spring game of 4 full quarters and played it through as a real football game. But it's hard to tell, but it still gives everyone the ammo that they like when they like to point to Boston College and say 2 field goals and a safety. I mean, it's BC.
And especially considering the lack of support from the offense. Statistically, this was the best defense in college football in 2015. You've got a new defensive coordinator in place. You miss much of the personnel that was able to dominate the other side of the football through most of last season. So what are your expectations for the defense? What did you hear out of not just the spring game itself, but more so spring practice over the last month that would give you some hope that you can maintain something close to that level?
Well, it's funny is that for the only continuity that Boston College had was actually in their offensive coach in a way, in the fact that Steve Addazio is an offensive coach, where he was an old offensive coordinator and he brings in his old offensive coordinator with Scott Loeffler, a guy who he's worked with. You see almost the continuity in the offensive side, and you don't see it by bringing in Jim Reed, who's an old-time football coach on the defensive side. You just don't see it when you have Paul Pasqualoni as your defensive line coach. That's not a guy that's a Boston College continuity coach that doesn't keep things going the way that it was. But at the same time, the players and the personnel, most of them are the same. You get guys out there who played a little bit last year, but during spring practice have been pretty good. Tajamir Torres is a guy that's back. He's a sophomore. Adam Tang, I believe, might have been hurt last year. I don't recall off the top of my head, but he had 6 tackles to lead everybody, had a fumble recovery. He's a junior defensive back. And Connor Strachan had 4 tackles and a forced fumble, who's a name that people will conceivably remember. You get sacks out of guys like John Johnson, who's a defensive back. Wyatt Ray is a new name. Harold Landry is a continual name. So you're blending new names and old names under a system that you're saying, we're bringing in a new defensive coordinator, but if the guys in that team know how to play together and can set the tone in the same scheme, I mean, there's only so many ways you can play a 4-3 defense. You go out, you have 4 defensive linemen, you have 3 linebackers and 4 defensive backs, or go 5-2 or 4-2 or whatever it is, and bring out a nickel back. There's not only so many ways you can blitz guys and do different schemes. And I think as long as they stay aggressive and they play well, the expectation will be maybe they take a step back simply because it was a once-in-a-lifetime defense last year. I mean, there's no other way around. There's no way that's sustainable for another full 12 games. But even if they take a step back, they're still elite, and I think that's a reasonable expectation for them.
So you gave us a number of names here, Dan, on the defensive side of the ball. And again, I'm going to go not just to the spring game, but everything you've heard out of spring practice over the last month. Maybe some other names that we should keep a watch on that could really stand out in August leading into the season.
Well, it's funny is that Patrick Towles, who was a graduate transfer up into Boston College out of Kentucky at the quarterback position, I'm not sure that he's going to have a full grasp on the position if they're going to be running cadences or certain things. Darius Wade has been in the system now for 3 years. This is his 3rd year in the system, and he's only a redshirt sophomore. As a freshman, as a sophomore, granted he was injured, but he's been with the system continuously, and he does know the expectations, knows the players. As Towles kind of comes into it, and they start to build the offense around the guy. By the way, Towles is 6'5". He looks like he's about 6'7". He is a mammoth monster of a quarterback, which is something that Boston College has not had, I think, ever. But a guy like him, if he can't get it, Darius Wade played very well in the spring game, and if it's going to be open and you're going to be able to scramble, he's a guy that you maybe want to watch and just say maybe he's not written off, and Towles is an insurance policy as opposed to the other way around. Some of the other names that a lot of Boston College fans will remember not fondly from last year. Elijah Robinson was a bad wide receiver. He was a converted quarterback. He was a bad receiver last year. Everyone was a bad receiver last year. He made a game high, I think it was 5 catches. So there are names that Boston College fans will know, but maybe think of poorly, and they might be able in a new scheme. If they open things up, again, it's hard to tell because the spring game was played for the players, and they didn't show us anything that we're going to really think of to say, hey, yeah, these guys are going to be all the pass catchers. There are a couple names just to throw out there. Ben Glines did have a 30-yard reception from Anthony Brown, who's the 3rd quarterback on the roster. He's an early enrollee freshman, is Brown. Glines was hurt last year. He had a 35-yard reception. Tommy Sweeney was the tight end that I mentioned earlier. He's a pass-catching hands tight end. I'm really excited to see what he can do. Richard Wilson is a running back who will be playing alongside the usual suspects, Miles Willis, John Hilliman, etc. Drew Barksdale, another guy who was hurt last year, had a 52-yard catch. And Jeff Smith, who played quarterback last year, had 4 catches for 51 yards. He's a sophomore. He's got a lot of speed. He apparently has great rapport with Towles. He was a poor quarterback, but he has great fundamental speed, great natural raw ability. If you put him at running back, you put him at wide receiver as a slot guy, you never know what can happen. Maybe they got to keep recruiting quarterbacks and just convert them all.
That could be a plan. And now it seems like the goal is pretty simple between late April and the first week of August. Don't do anything stupid, kids, and also don't do anything stupid athletically to get yourself hurt. Stay healthy, stay out of trouble, get us to the first week of August.
Well, that was the name of the game last year. They were all hurt, the offensive linemen, during spring practice, and the injuries last year were brutal to the team itself from the beginning of practice all the way through the season. I just hope that if everybody stays healthy, come that month of preparation before heading out to Ireland to take on Georgia Tech, I know everyone says, well, hope springs eternal in the spring, and I sound like a Red Sox fan in 2000. Before the Grady Little and Tito Francona era. Hope springs eternal. This is our year. You never know, but hey, maybe there's something there that we can get excited about.
And why not? So it's a long wait to football, but we'll keep talking Boston College in the ACC. So Dan Rubin joining us from BC Interruption. Dan, it's always a good time.
Always.